Just a quick disclaimer before we get started, I will be diving into a good majority of the Fate series anime. For those either watching all the series now or plan to, I will be covering Fate Zero, Unlimited Blade Works, Heaven's Feel, Apocrypha, Grand Order Babylonia, as well as the Grand Order movies as well. If you don't want to get spoiled now, I recommend coming back to this video in the near future once your binge journey is complete. Otherwise, thank you for watching and enjoy. I want you to think about what are the best story concepts in anime. Is it a superhero society and a powerless kid gets one shot at greatness? Or how about a teen Shinigami who rises to the occasion to protect his friends? What about a pirate adventure rich with world building and quite literally refuses to end? Anime is so great because of how many concepts and stories it introduces that the average person may never even think of. It's this level of creativity that keeps us coming back, and it's impressive how bottomless the well of ideas can go. While I may not talk about this series a lot, I do have one show that will never cease to amaze me with its lack of creative bounds that is rooted in the battle royale of the most notorious figures throughout humanity. The Fate series was something that truly showed just how far an idea can reach. The concept of a battle royale between mages and heroic spirits that can take place amongst different locations, time periods, and characters to keep telling new stories was the perfect formula to keep me coming back for each new iteration. Right off the bat, the best thing about heroic spirits especially is that they can be anyone from any form of mythology, religion, folklore, fairy tale, and even real people who existed, but they have their own twist. Many of them gender bent and others adjusted to fit the nature of their heroic spirit class, but overall still have a lot of their lore written as if this is the real deal. People like King Arthur and Leonardo da Vinci are gender bent, Hercules given a more monstrous presence because of his class, and Frankenstein is actually kind of adorable. Naturally, like many who got into the series, I started with Fate Zero, giving me the introduction I needed to this Holy Grail war, the stakes involved, the establishment and impact of characters like Saber and Kiritsugu, and the dark side of magecraft. During this time, I had never seen such epic battle animation, and considering I'm a fan of kinetic fights, Fate was serving me a 5-star course meal with all the weapon combat that came with the spirits. The masters equally playing a huge part in the story's impact because till this day, people still talk about Kiritsugu and Kirei. If there is one thing that was made clear in this Holy Grail war, it's that being a master tends to mean that you will endure tragedy no matter what you do. It's kill or be killed, and that's pretty much what you sign up for when entering this Holy Grail war. Everyone has their own reason, whether it's selfish or selfless, and the path to victory will never be easy. Zero's ending was the perfect way to keep this main route going with there being no victor and instead setting up the framework for Unlimited Blade Works. Amy and Shiro, being the blessed souls saved from Fate Zero, comes around as this story's protagonist, and once again, Saber is back to serve the adopted son of Kiritsugu. I appreciated the return of characters like Gilgamesh especially because he is by far one of the more interesting characters, especially when you see this version of him in comparison to things like Grand Order and soon Strange Fate, but I'll be diving into that later. Unlike Zero, Unlimited Blade Works is what really sold me for the future to come. We also met Rin, who kicked off my Ishtar obsession, and the duo was the lead in this Holy Grail war. The battle of oneself between Shiro and Archer with the last Stardust OST lives rent-free in my head. Just seeing these two characters refusing to back down because of their ideals went so incredibly hard, and we can't forget that classic moment that really had the battle peaking. The finale of the Unlimited Blade Works series was when I really knew I was going to be down for the long term, because what is more epic than a hero of justice going one-on-one with the King of Heroes? Feel free to check out my video discussing my favorite fights in anime with the link in the description, because this fight was a huge winner for me back in 2015. Once I got done with Unlimited Blade Works, I knew that I was gonna have to wait for more Fate, and 2 years later came Apocrypha. What I absolutely loved about Apocrypha was that while at the time I didn't realize it, the anime gave so many nods to the different corners of the Fate universe. Mordred in their story with King Arthur, who was the Saber I knew from Zero and Unlimited Blade Works, giving me more insight into the situation with the Round Table and the destruction of Camelot. Jeanne d'Arc and Castor's link when going back to Fate Zero. So many ties began to click, and I found it very cool how they were able to connect dots and provide recontextualization for some of the events in the spirit's previous lifetimes. Apocrypha being tackled by A1 Pictures still brought the heat with arguably some of the most destructive fights and ear-blasting sound effects in the series. Of course, I'd be a huge fraud if I didn't mention the introduction of Astolfo and the whole femboy revolution that came with his storyline. To all of you degenerates, I know exactly what you are. Apocrypha also managed to provide a pretty interesting protagonist with Homunculus turned master, and I thought it was a pretty interesting situation given that masters are usually there off the jump, but coming into that role is just as possible with the right heart and support. While Apocrypha may have had some mixed thoughts, I loved it, and with the connections being made across the series, it made me wonder how much bigger could these stories get and this web of connections could be. Fast forward 4 years later, and I was finally introduced to the Grand Order verse. Grand Order, I think, is probably the most epic and coolest storyline for Fate that I could have wanted. It feels like an MCU buildup where you have this organization going back in time, addressing the impending incineration of humanity, and the only way to prevent it is to work with the servants of various time periods and combat the singularities in each period. While Babylonia is the first anime that was introduced for the Grand Order verse, my only complaint is that I wish they could have made animes going in order from the first singularity all the way to Solomon. I'm sure there's a good reason why they could not, but just seeing all the many servants in the promotional videos for each singularity makes me wonder who they are, what is their story, and there are literally so many servants, like hundreds of them. On top of that, Grand Order pulls servants from across all the storylines, and that is probably the most epic part about it. Heck, even Shiro and Rin are servants in a way, whether it be in spirit or in design. Babylonia gave me another honorable side of Gilgamesh, which was definitely a shock coming off of something like Zero and Unlimited Blade Works, and the new context for stories doesn't stop there either. We also got a two-part Grand Order movie with dealing with the Knights of the Round Table, which added even more recontextualization for people like Saber and Mordred, and god did I love when the web of connections grow. To top it off, the finale of the Grand Order universe was like if Fate had their own Infinity War moment, summoning almost every servant from what I assume would be across all the singularities. How much more epic could it get than seeing servants from different animes and time periods uniting for one final stand against the one servant who started it all? Now, while we're on the topic of movies, let's turn back the time for a little bit and discuss Heaven's Feel. I was completely unaware back in 2017 that Heaven's Feel was even a thing. It wasn't until part 2 was announced that I discovered this secondary route to the Unlimited Blade Works storyline, and man, this one was dark. I always felt that Sakura and Ryder were both characters that kinda got shafted from being able to do too much in the Unlimited Blade Works storyline, and Heaven's Feel completely changed that narrative. Having Ryder become the MVP of this route was a very fitting development for her story, and was also cool to make that connection of her being this story's Medusa and Anna, considering I watched Babylonia before I came back to this. Sakura completely going down the dark route, which was the result of those who abused her and was taking names left and right. From devouring servants with her Avenger shadow to killing off those who opposed her, it took a hell of a desperate fight to save this girl. Of course, one of the best fights in the series came from the movie with Ryder versus Saber Alter, and Ufotable did not pull their punches with this showdown. From my understanding, the ending of this movie is the true ending to the events, and you realize that Shiro really is the GOAT given his sacrifices. With all the movies and main chunks of anime under my belt, I continue to be satisfied with these stories centered around the Holy Grail War, and I gotta give it to Type Moon for doing what they do. For all these stories, for all these ideals of these masters, for the convictions of these servants, there is endless potential for Fate because of how creative this concept of a Holy Grail War is founded on, and that alone makes it one of anime's best. If it isn't obvious by now, I am definitely a normie when it comes to Fate. I have never read any of the light novels, peeped a visual novel, or spent a dime on a gacha game, but that isn't gonna stop me from saying that Fate truly is a series that is worth anyone's time. There is not many anime that can continue to be this epic and refreshing each time you watch a new storyline from it, and it's very impressive considering how long it's been going on. Yet again, another story is upon us, with Strange Fate debuting at Anime Expo this summer, and considering it was delayed for the sake of quality ones, I can't imagine how good this story will be. Not to mention, Swano is in charge of the OST, so we are in for some absolute bangers. If there is one thing I regret, it's that I haven't watched the last encore yet, but I will get around to it eventually. In the meantime, I'll be patiently waiting for the story of Strange Fate, with the setting in the USA and a brand new battle for the Holy Grail amping up once more. That's pretty much it for me though. As always, thank you for watching, and make sure to leave all your thoughts about the Fate series in the comment section down below. Stay safe out there, and I will catch you guys in the next video.